Hi everyone, David here. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for coming back for another video. Welcome if it's your first one. Are you doing okay? I'm having a bit of a slob day. It's kind of rainy and cloudy and horrid, so I'm staying in. I'm making a few videos today, so if my hair doesn't change, that's why. I try to keep up the illusion of change. I've got a new shirt on today. I'm not going to show you that yet though, because that's part of today's topic. Today I'm talking about one of my interests. I've done a few like this before. They've kind of not really done that well, but I'm pushing through anyway. I've done one about the Nazotoki games a little while ago, the puzzle games on the train. I've done one about like things like Studio Ghibli and Mamoru Hosoda, two kind of big animation giants. And what else? I've done about Perfume as well, the Japanese electronic girl band. They're not electronic girls, they're electronic music girl band. Today I'm going to talk about Final Fantasy, which is a long-running video game franchise or series, because I've reached a particular goal in my gaming career. I'm going to talk about that today. This was all spurred on by the fact that the first 6 games were re-released on the Nintendo Switch as part of the Pixel Remaster collection. So all of the first 6 games, which were originally on the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Super Nintendo, were all brought into the modern day with a few kind of quality of life adjustments. So I'm going to talk about that today. Before I start, let me just do the like, subscribe, share this channel, and leave a comment. That would help me a lot, especially after subscriptions. It's been a long road to get to 1,000. I'm not there yet. Maybe at the end of this year I can do it. So please help me out. Okay, so well, for a bit of background for me, I have been playing video games since, I don't know, I was about 8 or 9 years old. My sister had Super Mario Brothers on the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. So I remember playing that. Then she had Sonic on the Mega Drive, which really got me into it. And after that I got Sega systems. And then after that I moved on to the PlayStation 2. And then after that probably went back into the Nintendo fold. I never had a Nintendo console system until the Wii, I think. But I did have the portable ones, like the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance, all that, the DS, 3DS. So because I didn't have the NES and the Super Nintendo, I never played any of these first Final Fantasy games. My first contact with Final Fantasy was actually number 7, which was the first PlayStation 1. I really got into that, and after that I was continued the series, and from there a few spin-offs as well. I got as far as 13 before I moved to Japan. I don't have a PlayStation 4 or 5, so that's kind of stopped me in my tracks. So I'm content with where I am now. Because of that, I hadn't really had a lot of contact with the old Famicom. Famicom is like the Nintendo Entertainment System, and the Super Famicom is the Super Nintendo. That's their Japanese names. I had tried some of them on the was it Game Boy Advance? They had some remakes on that, and I think I got through most of them. I decided at one point I wanted to play all of them, finish all of the mainline games, because I'd started from 7 and I'd gone through them all, apart from number 11, which was an online one, and also 14, which is online. So except for those, I've done the whole lot. So I thought, oh, I want to pick up all the first 6 too. I didn't make it all the way through. I had some problems with a kind of bootleg cartridge for 4, which lost all my data, so I kind of gave up on that. And number 6, I never finished. I think because I came to Japan before I could do it. So finally, I had revenge to do it on the Switch. I have a Nintendo Switch too. So I'm going to talk about each of those and a little kind of other stuff at the end. So Final Fantasy 1, I've got my notes here because I can't remember all 6 of them, how different they were. So that came out in 1987 on the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. I'm going to say NES, and I'm going to say SNES as well, because that's what we used to call it, the Super Nintendo. The first one's pretty straightforward. It doesn't take that long either. In fact, so basic you don't even have names for the characters. And they do have a kind of a job system, but you choose the jobs at the start of the game and then it's fixed. So that's interesting. I could see how different playthroughs would be interesting in that case. I think I followed a guide for most of it, so it's fairly straightforward. Just go from place to place and kill stuff. But it did introduce the Final Fantasy staple of crystals, the Warriors of Light. So usually there's 4 crystals in the world and they are in some kind of danger and you have to go and protect them or repair them or something like that. There's a lot of crystal stuff in the Final Fantasy franchise. It's fairly straightforward. I could see how it's the basis for what was going to come. The story was kind of alright, fairly basic. Crystal, go from one place to one place and finally get to the final boss. So nothing too challenging. The only thing challenging is that the random enemy encounters were really often. But that's where things in the remasters come in, because you can adjust some of the settings that you couldn't before. So for example, you can adjust the amount of experience you get, the amount of money you get, and the amount of random encounters. I think you can either switch it on or switch it off. So you can kind of really adjust the difficulty as well. I wasn't really in there for a big challenge, so I think I did crank up the good stuff, so I could get through it quicker. Because it's interesting as a time capsule, but maybe in the modern day it's not really anything special. So that's the first one. Only a year later we got Final Fantasy 2, also on the NES, the first entertainment system. You don't even get experience levels on this one, which was a little bit strange. I don't think they ever came back to this idea. But the more you use magic, for example, you can level up the magic, or the more you attack, the more the stronger you get. And even the kind of weapons you use, the more you use them, you get better at that type of weapon. So that was kind of a unique way of leveling up. I don't know if it's totally successful. Apparently you can really play the system by attacking yourselves and healing yourself, and I don't know, it's a way of gaming the system. You did get named characters for this one. I mean, the story was kind of interesting. I think there's, was it 3 characters, and then the 4th slot, you often get these guest characters coming in and helping you out, and often meeting some horrible demise at the end, which is a little bit depressing. So the story was a little bit more complex because we've got this larger cast of characters, and I felt more like we're in a world at least. Final Fantasy 3 from 1990. This is the last one on the NES. This introduced a job system for the first time, so in between battles you can actually change your jobs, so you can learn different skills. For example, you can be like a magician or a warrior or like a thief, all that sort of stuff. So that gives a nice bit of complexity and strategy to that. To be honest, I don't really like the job systems anyway, because I like to have a fairly straight road. I need to know what I'm doing. Again, we were talking about crystals and balance of the universe, that kind of storyline. So the story is kind of a bit generic, and because of this Pixel Remaster engine they use, a lot of the games kind of look quite similar because they're upgrading to the same kind of art style. So at this point it was starting to feel like all the games are merging into one a little bit. It was again another step up. You can see some experimentation going on to the series. Okay, so that's number 3. Then we're going to move on to the Super Nintendo games. That starts with Final Fantasy IV in 1991. This was actually released as Final Fantasy II in the Western world because we couldn't handle the other games apparently. I don't know, maybe it's like a translation thing or localization. So that was Final Fantasy IV was one of my big ones. I felt quite happy when I actually finally finished it because I got as far as the final boss when I was playing the Game Boy one, the Game Boy Advance version. But like I said, because it was a bootleg one from eBay, I didn't realise it was that dodgy, but the memory chip kind of conked out and I lost all my data, so it took me a long time, because RPGs take a long time to get through. I enjoyed the story though. I feel quite familiar with it now because I've had to play it a few times. You do get fixed jobs, and the characters are quite well defined, and because we're on the Super Nintendo, there's a lot of more complexity to the dialogue and things like that. You can actually add more contents as well, and more like side quests. There are quite a lot of changing characters too. They kind of take part in your party for quite a short time, so in that sense it made it a little bit hard to work on character development because you're always changing your team, which I don't really like, but it was interesting, keeps it a little bit fresh. Crystals again, we're talking about crystals. The story was about crystals, defending them, or I don't know, stealing them. I think people were stealing the crystals. And I don't know, the story starts to get a bit kind of soapy during the Super Nintendo era. Lots of kind of romance stuff going on and high drama, and you even go to the moon at one point. So kind of it's pretty full on with the story. Yeah, I enjoyed Final Fantasy IV. I'm glad I finished it. Yeah, you can see how the series is really taking a leap from the 8-bit era to the 16-bit era. Final Fantasy V, again bringing back jobs. This is from 1992. They're really knocking these games out. It's almost every year. Yeah, job system again. I didn't really like the job system in this one. It's interesting that you can learn different skills from your different jobs, but yeah, I found it quite complicated and difficult to use, and I wasn't really sure why I was maxing out all these jobs, because if it was just for the final fight only, I don't know, but I don't know, I felt like it made it a bit too easy as well if you're maxing out a lot of things. The main bad guy as well is like a haunted tree, which is a little bit of a weird swerve for this franchise. Although I think there was a evil cloud as well as one of the main antagonists. They tried to make it quite comedic as well. There's a lot of kind of gags in there, and the little pixel sprites are kind of like looking shocked all the time. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I found 5 a little bit of a slog, but yeah, it was still kind of interesting in its own way. Especially the job system makes it a bit different to the others. Finally, I got to Final Fantasy VI, which came out in 1994, the final Final Fantasy for the Super Nintendo. That was also released as Final Fantasy III in the Western world for a long while. I felt, yeah, it's a very elaborate game. There's so much going on. There's a huge cast as well. In the other games, you kind of have your core team. Sometimes they leave and come back, and then you've got like this revolving 4th slot. But this time you can completely customize your team the whole time. And there's a lot of pressure to kind of develop all members as well, because at some points you have to use all of them. Or like two parties or something. You can't just focus on your main group. So I found that a little bit time consuming and not really in an interesting way. But like the setting was quite interesting too. It was more like a steampunk feeling. So you're in this kind of, I don't know, industrial revolution plus magic kind of environment, which was kind of interesting. And you can see it was on the Super Nintendo. They're using the Mode 7 graphics as any opportunity they could get their hands on, so that was kind of interesting, although Mode 7 always makes me feel a bit sick, so I don't know. Yeah, the story is a bit insane as well, especially with all the characters. It felt quite difficult to give them all resolutions by the end without adding a lot of extra stuff into the game. But yeah, interesting. The way of getting skills was sort of interesting, although that was quite time consuming too if you really want to focus on building all members up. Yeah, kind of soapy comedy love story thing as well. The antagonist is quite interesting too, who is well, he's called Kefka, which is kind of fairly notorious in the franchise. It felt a bit kind of pantomimey at the start, so there's a bit of a swerve when he became like the big bad by the end. But yeah, finally I finished it, so that got me to the end of the Final Fantasy first 6 franchise. I have to introduce something. I've got a little guy here waiting for me. This is called a Daruma. This is not like a good luck charm really in Japan, but it's more like an encouragement to reach your goals. So what you do with these are kind of made from like paper mache. You fill in the first eye with a pen or I don't know, brush or whatever. You fill in this first eye when you make your goal. You set your goal, and then he's kind of sitting there to remind you to finish your goal until you've done it. He's going to have only one eye. And now my goal. I bought this in Asakusa in the touristy market in 2007 when I first came to Japan to visit. That's insane. That's how long is that? 17 years ago, almost. So this has been sitting in my window in my old apartment in England for a long time, so you can see all the sun damage. This cheap old Daruma, all the paint's broken down in the sun, it's completely bleached. But he's still with me. But finally, I can say I've finished all of my Final Fantasy games now, because I've done the ones after this too. So finally, I'm going to fill in his other eye, my Sharpie. They do a good job now. There we go. Okay, he's all finished. I feel like the end of an era for this one. So there we go. Thank you for, sorry for keeping you waiting so long. I think I was supposed to burn him afterwards. I don't know what we're supposed to do. I'll find some way of disposing of him respectfully. So that's most of the stuff about Final Fantasy. I did go to a museum a little while ago in Hirakata Park. I picked up this merchandise. This is actually this is before the 16th Final Fantasy came out. So this is all the main protagonists from each of the games. So for example, you can see Cloud from number 7 there. You can see the first 6 there. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I like this. I've actually used all pages up finally now. I last a few months ago. So I've just been keeping this for something. I don't know. Maybe for this video. Yeah, and I've got my Final Fantasy 7 t-shirt on. You can see this. Okay, I got this in Uniqlo. It's really cheap as well, and well, I mean it's kind of cheap as well. It's just like an iron-on print, but you can see the Final Fantasy characters and Midgar in the middle. After playing all these 6 games, I was thinking like, oh, I'm glad that's all over finally, because it was feeling like a bit of a slog, and I didn't want to give up my momentum and stop early, or take a break at all. But a little voice was saying, do 7 again, play 7 again. Because I have downloaded it for the Switch ages ago, maybe like 5 years ago, but I never played it because I've finished it already. But I've started playing 7 again, so I'm about 5 hours into it now. It's a really good game. 7's probably one of my favourites. After that, 8, I think I need to do a bit of I don't know, redemption with that one, because I never really enjoyed it that much at the time. But it does give back nice memories. I remember getting it for Christmas, maybe in 98 or 99, and 99 I suppose, and yeah, playing through that on Christmas morning, which was really good. Yeah, Final Fantasy 7 gives me memories of 97, that summer. I was listening to like Desiree or Ace of Base or something. 9 I played when I was at university. That was really nice, kind of old medieval style one. I'd be interested to play that again. And 10 is the big one I want to play again, because I think 10 might be my favourite out of all of them. That's the first PlayStation 2 one. I really enjoyed that, and they've got the sequel as well, 10-2. It gets a bit messy because there's sequels in the main numbered series too, but they have to, how do we add a sequel to something with a number? Yeah, I played 12 as well. I enjoyed that at the time, but I don't remember a lot about it, so I want to play that again too. Again with the remastered version called the Zodiac Age. And 13, that was a real slog to get through, I have to say, on the Xbox 360. I don't have any way of replaying that at the moment unless I get a new system, or get it on my PS3 or something like that. And I don't know, maybe I'll play all of them again, like a victory lap. I'm not sure. I've got all these other games I want to clear my backlog. I keep buying things. Same with my books. I keep buying books and then not reading them. So yeah, so I guess that's everything to talk about really. I'm hoping to go to the Square Enix shop in Shinjuku when I go to Tokyo in a few months. Square Enix is the company that makes Final Fantasy. So stay tuned. I might do a little video about going there, because that was really nice feeling to go there. But almost 10 years ago. It must 10 years ago? It might be. So stay tuned for that. If you're interested in any more video game stuff, there's plenty I can talk about video games, because I've been playing them since I was a little kid. So let me know in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and yeah, leave a comment. Share this channel as well to anyone who will listen. I appreciate that. So thanks for watching all the way to the end. Take it easy and see you again. Bye bye.